randomness is an illusion we create in order for our brain to put something in a box that we don't yet understand. And when I started seeing these patterns early on in any cards I was pulling, I was like, this is statistically significant. This is literally not random.
Welcome to the Feminine Alchemy Podcast, where we explore the truth about the feminine, the peaceful, the wild, and the visceral. I'm your host, Jaye Beringer, joined by my co-hosts, Julie Dean Richards and Kaylee Rose. Each week, we explore the deep mysteries of the feminine and help listeners apply them to their daily lives in a practical way. Join us to unlock the hidden wisdoms your soul has been waiting for.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Feminine Alchemy. I am Julie Dean Richards this time. I get to be the host because I get to interview Jaye Beringer and her business partner, Matt Stine, about something super exciting that they have come up with. It's an amazing app. It's called Tarot Pulse, but I'm not going to give it all away. I want them to talk about it. So I guess we should get to know Matt a little bit because we've never interviewed Matt before. Matt, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, I'll try. Real quick. Real quick is a relative term. I talk a lot. So I have a couple of different ways that I could introduce myself. One is, well, we've made this piece of software, so clearly one of us at least is writing computer code. That would be me. I'm the geek in this situation, and I even have my geek and proud of it mug today. I've been doing that professionally for like 25 years. I probably wrote my first code into a computer when I was like 7. I don't know, a long time ago. It was a long, long time ago. And as I've gotten later in years in career, I do a lot more of what people would put under management than actually doing the hands-on stuff. So part of how I got down this road is like, okay, well, this will be a fun project to do, right? See if we can make this work. Funny enough, it started out as a spreadsheet, but we can talk about that later. But I also have a really interesting kind of spiritual story. Grew up in what I would, best describe as sort of a folk cultural Christianity type environment. Quite sure that there was witchy stuff going on, even if nobody would actually call it that or admit to it. And then when I was in my 20s, I went whole hog into deep, committed Southern Baptist, I did door-to-door evangelism, that kind of stuff. And that lasted about 10 or 12 years before it started to unravel. I kind of spent most of the first couple decades of my life within 100 miles of one place. Kind of moved around within that circle, but never really got out of it. And then I got out of it big time. I started traveling all over the place. And a lot of the stories start to unravel when you first see that people aren't like the way they talk about them. So eventually that turned into all kinds of things falling apart. But yeah, I'm not even remotely Christian. I mean, I still talk to Jesus every day, but I think the people who typically talk to Jesus would probably take issue with the way I talk to Jesus. But yeah, I'm practicing witch, astrologer, tarot reader, all the things. So I'm a really weird person, to some, like, when people find that both of those parts of me exist, it kind of throws them a little bit. People are usually really into it, though. That's the thing that I find super, super weird to me, is that when it's not your typical someone showing up to a call in corporate America background, and they're like, what's that stuff? And I'm like, do you really want to know? Most people are totally into it.
Well, what's your sun, moon, and rising?
What's my sun, moon, and rising?
Yeah. Tell everyone what your sun, moon, and rising is.
Sagittarius sun and Virgo moon and rising.
Ooh la la, ooh la la. We have some
and
friends
the
like
Virgo
that.
moon and rising is actually even crazier because I've got Saturn in the North Node hanging out there too. So that house is busy. And then everything else that I just talked about was in the 4th house. And then my sun is totally unaspected, which is just weird. And so, like, yeah, we could get deep into
Mhm.
talking about my chart.
I'm like, I'm ready. Let's read it. Let's read the
I
chart.
know, I knew. I could see you're just like, yeah, this is cool.
Well, we love it. We love the weird. We totally understand the story. I think many of our listeners feel very similarly about their backgrounds and how we got here. And we're super excited to have you here, Matt. And I would love to hear from you and Jan. Just really quick, we can go deeper into the app later, but what is Tarot Pulse? Why are we talking about it? And then we can kind of break it down from there. You want to talk about that, Jan?
Yeah, so tarot pulls is about tracking trends over time of your tarot pulls. So if you pull 3 cards every single day and you start to see patterns and you see, what do we say here? Patterns are power, right? And so you're starting to see, oh, I consistently have been pulling, say it's the King of Swords in this very specific location 3 or 4 times a week. What's going on with that, right? Now, those are things that your eye is going to go to and you're going to start remembering, but there's probably a lot of stuff in your tarot pulls that you're not remembering. And this very function is the reason that I started actually understanding and trusting cards. Because if you believe it's actually random, if you believe it's random, you should not see these patterns. If you believe it's random, you should not see patterns. So when people say, oh, you're going to trust randomness to, like, I'm not actually trusting randomness. Randomness is an illusion we create in order for our brain to put something in a box that we don't yet understand. And when I started seeing these patterns early on in any cards I was pulling, I was like, this is statistically significant. This is literally not random. And that is how they do scientific testing on things to say, what is this? How does this compare against randomness? Well, guess what? We have the data. It's not random. You're getting information from a source but we just don't know what that source is all the time, right? Like it's the energetics, what I decided, I believe it's the energetics around your own self that you're getting information from. And when you enter into that like intention, you are impacting, and that is just how quantum physics works. You are impacting the outcome. So you are taking something that would be random and you're making it not random just by having that intention, and you're going to get the right cards in the right place at the right time. So how do we use that information to track it and then get powerful insights from our long-term patterns? And we can start to shift those patterns and see massive changes in our lives because now we're seeing what's really going on a deeper long-term level.
This is amazing. I love this. I mean, all three of us here are data nerds. We should talk about this. All of us come from these kind of researchy backgrounds. So I am loving this. But for somebody who is like, okay, I hear you're talking about cards. I'm hearing words like King of Swords. I hear the word tarot. Maybe I don't know too much about that. Let's just give a brief overview of what tarot is and how someone might use it.
My best way of making like tangible for like regular people is if you think about a deck of playing cards. Tarot and playing cards have actually grown up together. Playing cards, you have all the suits. It's very familiar. Tarot has suits. They correspond to the different suits in playing cards. There's like there's a page. We have a jack, but they have a page and a knight in tarot. That's the only difference though, right? So when we're talking about the different suits, we're talking about the different elements as well. So they each correspond to the 4 elements: earth, fire, water, and air. I forgot about my own, right? Air. Hello. So every pack of playing cards, though, has what? A joker. And the joker is the representative of the entirety of the major arcana. And the major arcana is really just the hero's journey in a story in individual pieces. So the whole major arcana, when we get those cards come through, they're really telling us like, this is your canon, right? This is part of like the big story that your life is on. And the other ones are more about, when you get the ones with the suits, they're more about the mundane day-to-day stuff, the little stuff that adds up. So it's really all about using the cards as like a mirror to shift your life. Matt, what do you have to add to that?
This is what I'm interested in right now. Because I love how you're basically saying there's 4 of these, there's 4 of these, there's 4 of these. There are lots of those in the cosmos, I guess you could say. Like 4 is a very important number, 3 is a very important number. I've gotten more deeply interested in what the numerology of readings can also tell you about what's going on, because ultimately, to me, the cards are just these magical keys to a bunch of knowledge that's already inside of you, and you just need something to unlock it and pull it out. And you've described several of them. And then you've got the fact that, oh, well, each of these cards has numbers. And then if you use numerology, it's adding, right? You're adding things up and reducing them down to a number. And then those numbers have energies too. And it's like, here's some more information that I can use in addition to what card is it and what is the picture that's on it on the particular deck that I'm using. And what about that symbolism is something that's traditionally been around for maybe hundreds of years and is like, oh, there's a lizard on that card. And to you, a lizard means something very, very, very specific. And you can't separate that association. And for me, well, that's the more important association for you. I'm also interested in all of Carl Jung's sphere. There's 4 functions: thinking, feeling, intuition, sensation. Those map to the 4 suits as well. So you can start to read them through, oh, I'm getting lots of cards related to my feeling function right now. And as you study cups, feeling, you can start to figure that out. It's just another little bit of telling whatever story is already in here and actually seeing how these cards are literally yanking it out and putting it in front of you so you can see it, because it's usually in your unconscious mind, right?
Yeah.
We can't talk directly to it. So we don't have to have the cards, but boy, they help.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think all of this is really beautiful. You can see that there's tons of different ways to use tarot and that it can tell you tons of different things. Just to put it out there for someone who doesn't know anything about it, tarot is a system. It's a symbolic system. It's got 78 cards, just like Jan was talking about. It's got 4 suits. Those cards are broken up into the major arcana and the minor arcana, and the major arcana Jan talked about is meant to represent a journey, a story, and the minor arcana is meant to represent things that happen to us. They're more like the playing cards we're used to, the clubs and the spades, things like that. Just like Matt was talking about, each of those cards has its own story. It has a rich history and it has symbology, and they each have numbers attached to them. So you can use your intuition to pull these cards, and you can use them in a myriad of ways. And they have been used at least since 1300 AD. So there is some tracing that they're older than that, but we'll get into that in a whole other episode. We could talk about the history forever, but we're using this system. So what you have built with Tarot Pulse is to use the system of these cards to help people understand the patterns that are coming through their intuition, through the energy that's around them as they're making these card pools. So I want to learn more about where the idea for this came from, how this came through, because there are lots of apps out there. People might have their own tarot app already, but we've talked about the differentiation here is the tracking over time. So where did this idea come from?
Hey friends, it's Jaye here. If you have been feeling really stressed out about the world lately, you are not alone. There's been enough crazy and fear flying around the internet that even I've been knocked off my rocker sometimes. But it's times like these that I'm really grateful for the tools I have to regulate my nervous system. I developed these tools for myself when I was going through the thick of it. My babies were young and I had a ton of repressed anger. And these tools help me through other stressful times, including negotiating my own divorce, having difficult money conversations, and of course, the whole COVID experience. And I've put all these tools in a method I call the authentic self-care method. This is different than other self-care programs because it is a framework for you to find your special sauce when it comes to self-care. And let me tell you a secret. Step 1 is not take a bath, get a haircut, or go to the gym. Step 1 is regulate your nervous system. And that's exactly what we do inside the 3-in-1 membership. This powerful program includes focused journals and meditations you can do in just a few minutes, like the fight or flight session, the hippocampus session, which rewrites your ability to see new possibilities, and the vagus nerve session, which helps you regulate your whole body in a crisis. Using these tools, members have reported feeling more empowered, more expansive, and many experience relief from actual physical pain, all for less than $2 a day. So join the 3-in-1 membership now so you can learn these tools today. The world is not going to become less crazy. The only thing you can control is how you respond to it. The 3-in-1 membership will help you do that, so click the link in the show notes to enroll today.
So if you go back, I guess almost 2 years now, it was early 2024. I had been fooling around with tarot very casually for a while. Somewhere somebody said, yeah, you should do a daily pull, right? Like whether you believe that or not, that's a lot of people's advice. This is how you get to know the cards. Do a daily pull. So I was like, okay, I'll start pulling a card every day. And then I felt like it's like I need something to like bounce off so we'll do 2 cards, or I did a card and an oracle card, something like that. And the advice was, write them down. So I would write them down in a journal, but then I also had a page for the month, and just every day I had the cards that I pulled on that day. And I'm looking at the page one day and I'm saying, those cards are really interesting on their own, but the fact that they're hanging out next to each other the way they are, and then what I remember was happening on those 3 days seems significant. Like, well, that's interesting. And then, hey, like, I've pulled this card 7 times this month. That in and of itself is statistically significant. So I thought, well, what was going on this month that's related to the energy of that card? Then I started thinking, okay, well, these are just the ones that I'm noticing. How many of these am I missing completely? Or just the fact that, I'm limited. I can look at a month's data at a point in time. Right. So I thought, okay, well, I need something that can track this. And I start looking around, and there's lots of things that will allow you to do a reading. And honestly, most of them are more focused on, hey, we'll pull the cards for you and all that. I'm like, oh, that's interesting, but I have cards. That's not the thing I need help with. I need help with take months of data over time and crunch the obvious patterns that are out of it. Just simple stuff like frequency. How often do I pull a card? What are the top 10 cards I've pulled in a period of time? All that kind of, there's nothing. And I'm like, oh, I'm really weird. I'm the only person who's interested in this, it sounds like. So I decided, I was also trying to start I was out of work. I was trying to start a little business doing spiritual things because I need to make money any way I can. I needed a lead magnet. And so I made a spreadsheet that solved this problem. People freaking loved it. I mean, I don't know that many people bought anything from me, but they certainly loved my freebie. And I got tons of people on my mailing list just because of this thing. And then people would say, this is awesome. Like, I never occurred to me to do this. You've made it obvious and simple. I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. Maybe I should, do more with this. And I did a second version of it at the end of the year, and I added a bunch of other stuff to it. I started to realize, okay, this is getting really hard to do, even with all of the spreadsheet automation that you can do in Google Sheets. After a while, there's a reason why you go actually write stuff in real software. But I'm kind of like, I don't have time for that. And so it just kind of sat there. And then, this will be controversial, I'm sure, but here we are. I also happened to get a job doing AI and machine learning for a big healthcare company. And I'm a skeptic of AI, big skeptic. So many things that are messed up, but it's powerful if you know what you're doing. And I was kind of compelled by my position to learn how to do this, like learn how to write code with large language models. And I actually got good at it. And then I thought, one weekend, I'm bored. Maybe I'll play with that thing. So I start working on it. Within a few hours, I had something that was already more powerful than anything I had ever built up to that point. And I started sending it to people. Jaye was one of the people that I sent it to. And literally everybody that sees it is like, take my money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is useful. Like, this might actually be worth it. Even if we never make tons of money off of this piece of software that we've built, like it costs a certain amount just to run. It's not cheap to take the leap that we've taken. So it needs to be worth it. It needs to be something that many people are going to find valuable and be willing to, spend the cost of I don't know. What do you get for $10 in the United States anymore? I have no idea. I used to know these things. You get a pizza, right? You can get a pizza for $10,
Right,
maybe.
maybe.
So anyway, $10 a month. It's not a trivial amount that you just forget about, but it's also not a huge amount. Would I pay $10 a month for this? I'm like, I would pay more than $10 a month for this because I'm so deeply into this idea that I've come up with. Now, the one person who got into it more than anybody else was Jaye. Jaye's
Yeah.
like talking back to me, can you make it do this? And can you make it do this? And I'm like, this is interesting. First of all, how long had we known each other at that point?
A
Like
solid month,
a solid month, maybe.
maybe
Okay.
6 weeks.
Maybe 6 weeks. Anyway, I thought, well, doing this by myself is going to be very hard. Doing this with someone else that can be as into it as I am, but do a lot of the running the business part of things because it's hard enough to do the engineering stuff. And what had really gotten in the way of any project I've tried to get off the ground before is I can do the thing, but I can't do the stuff around the thing. So yeah, I was like, hey, Jaye, you want to work on this? And, she did the very foolish thing and said yes. And here we are.
Here we are. Yeah. That was actually 6 months ago. Like, it's wild to me how fast we've been able to build this thing and get it into launch mode
And that's
so
not full
quickly.
time. That's
No.
not full time. Like this, Jayen will tell you, I go dark for like 3 weeks and then all of a sudden and then she's like, oh my God. What happened? And then I go back to sleep. If you're familiar with the terms punctuated equilibrium, like that's what it is.
Following your waves. That's how we do it. We got to follow the waves of the productivity. I love that. This is such a cool story. So build off of your own experience, trying to track it for yourself, see the patterns. You're able to use a large language model to create something out of this world, it sounds like. So fascinating, so interesting. Then you wrangled Jan into it, which actually makes complete sense to me because of course, she is the one who's like, she's the Gemini of all Geminis. I've got to try everything. I have to see what it says. I have to ask the questions. I have to poke the bear. This is my thing. Let's see how it goes. The perfect questioner to put your app to the test. You meet at an event. You decide, hey, let's do this together. So what is the process now? Like, what are your hopes for it? What are other things we need to know about Tarot Pulse?
Well, the first thing I think people need to understand, it is not a card pulling application. You have to have your own cards. Sorry, guys. And I'm really not sorry about that because I really believe that the reason that it's not random is because of our physical energy and the whole, hey, I'm going to have a computer pull 3 random cards for you. They're following an algorithm. It's not actually running off of your energetics. And so I really, I've tried those tarot pulling apps and I just don't trust them. Not like, oh, they're bad. Just like, I don't think they're going to be accurate as a random card pull can be, because it's not actually pulling in that physical energetic there. So it's not a card pulling app. It is a tool for you to understand your patterns over time in a much broader sense. And that's the real benefit, is that you can start to see those powerful patterns. Yeah. And I don't think we're ever going to go towards pulling an app pulling base model, because the physical, like when the card falls out and screams at you and says, look at me, you can't get that with a computer. You can't.
I mean, if we quite literally run out of things to do, maybe.
Maybe.
But I mean, you and I have been talking about, okay, what are we going to do next year?
Mhm.
Now that we finally got the thing off the ground. And like the list of things that we've talked about, I don't even think we're going to get through it in a year.
Yeah. No.
But those things are so much cooler than something pulling cards for you. Like, I just don't see the point. The other thing, though, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but we created this little feature that made it easier to just generate a year's worth of card pulls randomly. Guess what? That data looks very different than real data.
Mm-hmm.
It's still it's obviously artificial. Whereas when I looked at my data for the first time, got through a year and I started looking at the graphs And I started realizing where Earth was huge, what was actually happening at that point. And when the month that death showed up as the top card, well, first of all, people actually died that month, but there was also a lot of personal shedding of stuff, like reborn energy happening all over the place. And then you start looking out across that. And here's where the tower was big. Here's where who decided to follow me around the most that first year was the Queen of Pentacles. I was like, okay, well, what does that mean? Not only did she lead the year, but there were specific segments of time that she also showed up as the leader. And I'm like, okay, what was in common in those 3 times? The number of questions that you can ask is just, I don't think there's an end to it. So I just want to facilitate being able to ask all of those questions. And then beyond that, if you take all this data and you anonymize it, and then you start to say, okay, well, how are patterns showing up around the world, for example? Let's imagine this wonderful day in the future wherein we have like millions of people using this app all over the planet. And we can start to look at the top cards being pulled versus what's happening in that part of the globe right now. I can't imagine it not being significant. So honestly, I just want to like validate what we all already know in such a way that it's like, hey, I'm sorry, but you can't not pay attention to this. So I have that kind of big, huge, crazy vision out there in the far future. Like that's the big dream, is being able to understand people in aggregate energetically based on signal that they're contributing. That's just crazy to even think about how cool that is.
Yeah, my pattern brain is whirring right now. Like all the cogs are like turn, 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 turn. And just to underscore this for people listening, there's so much application for this data, so many applications. There's tons of personal application to your life. Exactly what Matt was saying. You know, why is the Queen of Pentacles showing up? Why is she leading the year? What does that mean about my life? Which are things that you would never notice if you just were doing card pulls and not writing them down. Even if you were writing them down, you probably wouldn't notice. Like somewhere in your mind, you might be like, oh, I'm drawing the Queen of Pentacles a lot, but it's not like matching it to that data. So you can go down and be like, oh, when she comes up, this is what's happening. Every time she appears, this means that, you know, something's going to happen in my bank account, or I'm going to get a business opportunity, or whatever it is. It's about knowing yourself deeply. And you can ask questions like that. I would imagine also it gives people more confidence in their ability to draw, like in their intuition and their ability to use their intuition to see that something is happening. You know, things are happening, patterns are happening. You're not alone out there, and to help them with their skills, to learn their skills. But there are so many questions you could ask and actually get to know the cards and get to know yourself and see, okay, how does this apply to me? So, are there any other applications the two of you want to highlight about this? Hey friends, it's Julie. I'm just popping in here real quick to tell you about a very special invitation we have for you. If you have been feeling deeply called to learn more about your feminine identity, or to see what feminine power really is, or you're just loving the podcast, then Kaylee and I would love to invite you to join our community, Feminine Alchemist. Inside, we host live monthly women's circles, challenges, and Wheel of the Year celebrations. They are seriously so much fun. We have monthly workshops where we bring in experts to teach on anything from menstruation to mythology. You'll also get access to our library of courses about astrology, intuition techniques, sacred embodiment, and cyclical living. And most importantly, you'll be able to connect with women who are like-hearted and walking the same path as you. So if this sounds exciting to you, join today by clicking the link in the show notes or going to femininealchemist.com. That's alchemist spelled M-Y-S-T. Okay, back to the episode.
Yeah. So each card is also associated with different planets and signs, and we're tracking that. So even if it's like the dead of winter, maybe you're having a very Leo-esque month, and it's like, what's going on here? Your cards are going to show that. And so there's going to be some nuance in the energies, and that'll give you some additional insight there. We're also tracking the numerology of the cards and how that plays into account. And you can see these as different graphs to gain additional insight into what's going on in your life. What else are we tracking? Planets, signs, numerology. We talked about so many things, elements.
Yeah, we're doing all of those things, and then we're kind of giving you the ability to decide what window of time you're interested in. So am I interested in the last year, the last month, the last quarter, whatever? Or just like invent a date range that you're interested in. So then basically recalculating for that period of time, okay, what are the frequencies of all the things? Right? What are the most pulled cards? Did you pull mostly swords, mostly wands? What order? What were the percentages? And then it goes to the astrology correspondences and then the numerology correspondences. So like you can flip through all of that pretty quickly. The thing that kind of wowed me initially when I started working on this with the spreadsheet was the time series of graphing the suits over the period of time and seeing the peaks and valleys. And, when major arcana is coming down and then say cups is going up, what's happening right there? What's happening when those lines cross over each other? And to be fair, the answer could be absolutely nothing.
Yes.
Like another thing that this can be useful for is noticing your own biases, right? So even when the data tells you, no, this isn't significant, you have another question to ask, which is like, well, why am I honing in on that when the cards are actually not really telling me what I think they're telling? So there's a curious approach that you can take regardless of what it's actually telling you. So another thing that we're thinking about doing eventually is enabling more social aspects. So there's anonymizing the data, but then if you want to share your data with people, so like being able to say, hey, I'll make this a public reading and people can comment on it, or we could form a circle of the three of us and we could see each other's readings, but nobody else could see them. Like all that kind of stuff is, I think, stuff that people would be very interested in once all of the other core stuff we're trying to do is in place. Because I think ultimately people are going to start to see things and they're going to want to talk about it. But to be honest with you, I'm completely uninterested in integrating this with traditional social media in any way.
Yes. Yes.
Like, I don't think, like, even though that would be the obvious, it's like, share your reading on Facebook. No, I don't want to go there. But sharing it with other people who are already here, who are already interested in this way of looking at things, that's a community. So it seems logical to facilitate those people being able to interact with one another. And of course, there's all kinds of doors that you open up when you decide to go down that route. Like the technical part of that will probably not be nearly as complicated as, okay, how do we want to actually make sure that that doesn't turn into a toxic cesspool, right? How do we make sure that this is actually a good experience for people and they still feel safe and they still feel that the data that they want protected is protected? All of that stuff's super important to us.
Yeah. Can we talk about sacred data?
Yeah, talk about it.
Because you keep flirting with it. I'm like, look, this is not just an accidental, like, oh, we don't think that's a good idea. This data is, to me, more valuable and important than your medical information, than your financial information, maybe even as important as your social security number. This data holds a lot of your energetic identity. And to me, we're not sharing that on social media, right? Like, that's not a good plan. And I'll tell you a silly story. I saw a very old video of when the internet first came out in the early 90s. And they were like, oh, look at all these people have email addresses. Like, this was a news article. It was on the news. It was like nationally publicized. And they're like, here's the president's email address. Obviously, he doesn't have that email address anymore. But I do not even want to get close to that. Like, what we are on the front end edge of is an important piece of data that I think is more significant to our actual identity than medical or financial data. And I come from a background of both. So seriously, guys, no. And that's why anonymizing data is the only way we would actually go into it and make understandings. We would allow people not to participate in that if they didn't want
Right.
to. They can delete their data at any time. That's not something that we own. It's just something we get to peek into sometimes, as long as people are okay with that. And we don't look at anybody's individual stuff. And we certainly wouldn't share it with anybody. And we're not data mining to try to get people to extract their stuff, you know. That's really the other part of it. Is this isn't about data mining. This is about giving you that capability to understand yourself better. So that's my soapbox on sacred data.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say, right? It's not just any kind of data. It's special for a reason. I love that. So just walk me through as I'm moving everything. Just walk me through someone, if they wanted to use it, what does it look like and when does it come out and how do people get a hold of this?
Who's taking that one?
That's a good question. I can start.
Yeah. So you'll start to see some of the division of responsibility in how we tell the story, I guess.
Right, that's true. So basically, what you're going to do when you get the app is you just upload 3-card readings every day. Like you would pull them every day. And this probably will keep you a little bit more in the desire to keep going with it and continue to just pull cards every day and not forget about it. And then, after a month goes by, you start to look back and say, whoa, look at this trend. Look at that trend. Look what's going on in my inner world. Look what's going on in my outer world. How much major arcana, minor arcana, like all that stuff. And how do they find us? Well, you go to mytarotpulse.com and you just click the buttons. There's a video walkthrough there where you can just see this in real time. It's hard to describe it over an audio podcast, but you can see it in real time, what it looks like, how it feels, all of those things. Matt, what do you have to add?
So just thinking out loud, there's obviously the whole signing up process, right? We're going to have a fairly simple subscription model, monthly or annually. And I don't know how long we're planning to do lifetimes, but this is the only time we're going to sell lifetime memberships. And lifetime meaning as long as there's a Tarot Pulse, you have an account that you can use. And that gets you an email with a link to the actual app where you put your stuff in and you do the magic link thing. You can set a password if you want to, whatever. We have the things you're used to finding on the internet for the most part. The one thing we don't do yet is like sign in with Google or things like that. We will eventually. It's just putting my engineer's hat on. That's more complicated than it sounds sometimes to make that actually work right. But yeah, then you land on a page and there's a button that says do your first reading. And you can pick as many cards as you want. 1 card, 2 card, 3 cards, 10. I don't know. There's no limit, really. I probably wouldn't recommend doing 10-card readings very often anyway, but we've kept it super flexible. Funny enough, when I did the first spreadsheet, I only allowed 2 cards per day. People were like, can I do 5? I'm like, okay. So I did 6, I think. I was like, okay, well, I'll do 1 more than the most anybody's ever. And hopefully I never have to do this again. Because in a spreadsheet, that was one of the hardest things to do. But in the software, it's actually quite trivial. And then as soon as you put your first reading in, stuff's going to start to pop up. And it will not be that interesting. But do it every day for a month. And on the last day of the month, look at what you see. There will probably be at least one thing that sticks out. Then do it another 2 months and look back over the last 90 days. You're probably going to see some really interesting stuff. And then, this is one of those things where patience is the thing that's going to pay off more than anything else, is being able to look back at those larger patterns that you just really can't see in the moment of your busy day-to-day life of whatever it is that you do. While you might have a very nice quiet time every day where you work with those cards, the rest of the days may or may not be absolutely insane. So that stuff goes in and goes out very quickly. This is the thing that holds it all together for you. And we're going to go even more sophisticated with that over time. Like one of the things that we want to do in the not too distant future is you could tag it as a love reading or a career reading or a travel reading, and then go back and say, okay, well, what happens when I do career readings? So not just limiting to windows of time, but common themes. What shows up when I'm working with my friendship life or my career life, my life was as a parent, like any of these different things, like seeing how those things relate to one another. And then, ooh, this card actually shows up across both of these tags. Like, what's happening there? So yeah, we want to allow people to annotate readings with other information that could then be used to gain insights. Then imagine, what are all the other things that you could possibly tag? It starts to go crazy, all the types of things that you could try to ask. So yeah, that's how you use it. And that's also, I think, how it's going to be used in the future.
Yeah, I love it. I love the simplicity of that because that's what I was thinking. You do a pull and then you click on, how many cards you pulled and which ones you pulled, right? And it just inputs that data. You could put some notes, which is really useful to be like, this is how I was feeling today, or this was my intention behind this. This was my question. So I love that. I love the idea of the tags. This is so awesome. You guys, I just have to say, it's so awesome. I'm so excited. When Jaye told me about it, I was like, I need that now. I was one of those people that Matt talked about that was like, I will pay the money for this thing. Let me do the thing. So the great news is it launches today. When this podcast comes out, it will be the launching day of all the days, which we're super excited about. So let's hear one more time where people can go to download it. And then anything else the two of you want to put in with that. If you want to share, I know you said it'd be $10 a month. Is that correct? We can go through that as well. But how do people get their hands on this immediately?
Yeah, you go to mytarotpulse.com. You just click on the button that says Start My Journey, and it'll say, hey, this is how you order it. It's $10 a month if you pay monthly, or you can save 2 months and pay annually for $100 a year. And then right now we do have lifetime membership for, I think it's $4.97.
Yeah, think so too.
Yeah, so you can use it forever, or as long as we exist.
As
That's
long as we
amazing.
exist. Lifetime, you have to be very clear about what you mean by that these days.
Whose life? Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. Well, is there anything else the two of you want to share before we sign off? I'm super excited about this. I think it'll be so useful for people. The data is amazing and sacred, and I love that you're treating it that way and that we have this. This is incredible. So, anything else the two of you would like to say before we sign off?
I'm just super excited that there are other people excited about this. That's the thing that's been fun about this conversation is this has been for several months now, just Jaye and I being excited back and forth at one another. So hearing another person be excited about it just makes me feel happy. So thank you for being excited about it.
Love it. Yeah, I just want to tell everybody, like, literally nothing is random. So if you think that something randomly happened, that's the thing to look at and go, what is this? And that's what we're trying to do, is help you identify the quote random things that happen that are actually really meaningful.
So true. Love it from both of you. Matt, it's been so good to have you here, and we're
Thank
so
you.
pleased to have you here. If people want to connect with you, I forgot to ask, are there other ways they should connect with you besides mytarotpulse.com?
Right now, probably the best way is on Substack. I have a publication / my business is also sort of called the same thing. It's called Falcon's Labyrinth, and we don't have time to unpack the name of that right now. But I talk about why it is what it is on the Substack. So if you find me there or search for me, Matt Stine, I still go by Falcon's Mage there. If anybody watched War Games as a kid, you know what I'm talking about. If you didn't, just don't worry about it. So yeah, I also hang out on Mastodon right now, but I'm going to guess there are not a lot of people listening to this to even know what that is, because the cross section of people in the spiritual space and that world is versus the spiritual people who don't. I have not found any of the same people. I think I found one other person on both sides of that Venn diagram. But I'm also there if you look for me. Same details.
Well, that's amazing. Everybody, find out what Mastodon is and go watch War Games. That's what we learned from this conversation. And also,
Please do other things. Please play with Tarot Pulse.
Please do. All right, everyone. Yes, please. No, the most important thing that everyone does right now is go to mytarotpulse.com and download the app. We are super excited about it. Cannot wait to hear from it. Thank you both for your time. And all right, everyone, we'll see you next week.
Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. Please make sure to give us a 5-star rating wherever you are listening and share with someone you know. See you next week.